Good morning, everyone, and happy 4th of July. I thought that I would just take the time to do two videos today, especially on first order and second order change. And we're going to be talking about how to navigate these types of questions on the MFT National Exam. So first, we're going to go through the definitions to these two terms. These terms come from general systems theory. I haven't heard of anybody saying that they had any first order and second order changes on their exam, but it's better to be overly prepared than to just be prepared. So let's go ahead and just take a dive into these two terms. So to get started out, first order change is just surface level. You can alter the behaviors, try to modify the behaviors, but it's just altering just like the underlying dynamics of the system. It's not doing a fundamental change, like an entire change of the system. It's just superficial, and it's going to be temporary. It can be temporary because you're just putting a Band-Aid over whatever it is that's going on, right? That's how I think of it. You're just slapping a Band-Aid over whatever it is that's going on, but underneath it is not being addressed, right? So take a look at the example. A parent frequently yells at their teenage daughter. She misses curfew. But after attending a few parenting workshops, the parent stops yelling and instead starts giving her the silent treatment or grounding her from when she comes home. So now here it is right there. It's just a superficial change. You stopped yelling at her, right? But then you gave her the silent treatment and then you started to ground her. So that tells us what? Her behavior didn't change. Her behavior remained the same. The parent stayed the same, feeling the same way, still wanting to have the control because you're giving her the silent treatment and then you're punishing her when she is coming home late. First order change. Second order change would be the mother and the daughter sitting down, talking about what mom learned in the workshop, the mom and the daughter collaborating together on what her curfew time should look like. You know, what time do you leave? What time do you come back home? You know, giving the daughter a little bit more freedom and autonomy, right? That'd be second order change because then the mom's role will then change from what? Being that controlling parent, silent treatment, still trying to punish. And then she turns into the collaborator with the daughter and working through decisions that she would like for her daughter to make regarding her curfew. That's second order change. First order is what? Slapping that Band-Aid over it. Still, the daughter still coming home late, and all you did is give her the silent treatment and try to punish her, right? Watch for these words or phrases. Behavior change without changes to core beliefs in the system. Attempts to control or manage the system. You will see a lot of that where the parent, if it has to do with the parent and a teen, the parent is 9 times out of 10, or the child trying to control the child's behavior by doing what? Punishing. That's just superficial change. Solving problems using the same old rules or assumptions. Same thing as it does with that daughter. You're still trying to punish her. Punishment wasn't working, right? If that was the case, then she wouldn't be breaking the curfew. No change in structure, role, or dynamic. Structure stayed the same. Parent went to a workshop. Okay, first order change. You went to the workshop, learned something new, and then you come back and you're still doing the same thing. Daughter still not coming home on time, and you're still punishing her, and now you're giving her the silent treatment. No change in the structure. Stayed the same. Stayed the exact same. Words or phrases to look out for. The parent began using different discipline strategies, but still, right? But still this happened, but still believes this parent is still struggling, still doesn't want to relinquish the control. The therapist helped the family communicate more clearly, but this remained the same. Now, instead of me yelling at you, I'm giving you the silent treatment, right? The teen complied more often, but the family dynamic did not change. The parents is still helicopters. That wife is still probably telling you every other day, make sure you do this, make sure you do that, right? The family adjusted their routines without addressing underlying conflicts, right? There's some underlying conflicts that's going on. You've adjusted your routines. There's still some underlying conflicts because you know why? Every now and again, you still taking little shots at your husband. You still taking shots at your wife, blaming them, stonewalling, holding them in contempt, criticism, underlying conflict still was not addressed, right? These may all point to first order change question, which are what? Surface level adjustments. Pay attention to that. They're minor. They are just surface level. They're behavior modification, altering the behavior. Nothing fundamentally is being actually altering the system, right? This is how you navigate a first order change question. First of all, you need to ask yourself, is this structure, role, or dynamic changing, or is it just the behavior? If it's just the behavior that is changing, it's first order change. Behavioral models, problem-solving therapy, or solution-focused therapy, they are the ones that weigh heavily on first order change because it's what? It's quick. It's quick. It's going to be fast because it's brief, right? Structured, strategic, and Bowen, they're second order. And it needs to be long-lasting. You know, structural restructures the entire family system. Second order change. Symptom relief, behavior modification, rule following, and compliance are words that let you know it's probably going to be first order change. The team complied, but the behavior changed, but watch for those keywords. They're going to lead you to first order change responses that you need to be looking out for. These are your first order change theories. And I can post this in a group, so you don't need to screenshot this or anything. I will post this in a group. So this is what I did. First order change theory, solution focused, behavior, strategic, psychodynamic, psychoeducation, brief, and DSM based approaches, because you know it's quick. It's to break up stuff really quick, like interaction sequences. It's quick. It has to be quick. These are your first order change theories. And I will post this in the group. I will make a copy of this and I will post it in the group so it's much bigger for you to have on hand, okay? Now, let's switch to second order change. This is the rules, the roles, the structures, the worldview, the system. It's all altered. It's all changed. There are no buts. There are no complied but. The behavior did this, but my wife does this, but my husband did this, but there are no buts. It's transformation. It's changing, life-changing, we should say, right? Not just improvement. This is not us slapping a Band-Aid just over it and then it's just hanging off and it's going to come off. This is us changing the entire system. Recognizing second order change on the MFT exam, fundamental reorganization. You may see words that say like restructuring, hierarchy has changed, roles have changed, new ways of interaction, co-creating narrative. The presented problem is no longer necessary. It's not there anymore. Rewriting the narrative or belief system. We had those I think I have those in some questions that I am going to do with you all in another video where they talk about co-creating, rewriting the narrative, right? This is how you will recognize these terms when it comes to second order change on the exam. How to navigate a second order change question. Ask yourself, is the system fundamentally shifting? Has it been altered? Has it been changed? The roles, the meanings, the identities, has it been changed? If that parent was a helicopter parent, is that parent moving from a helicopter parent to a one that's more collaborative with that child? Is that husband more controlling when it comes to the finances, but then did he change to a more person who wanted to collaborate with his wife and talk about the family decisions when it comes to the finances? Eliminate the distractors. If they just describe a simple behavior modification, it's probably going to be first order change, because you know why? You're going to see some responses. Well, the behavior, but the son began complying, but first order change. If it mentions a new worldview, identity, structure, it's going to be second order change. Fundamental shifts, co-creating, talking through, making family decisions. This person now has more autonomy. Those are second order change responses that you should be looking for. These are examples of second order change. Rigid authoritarian parents, I hope I'm saying that right, becomes more collaborative in response to family therapy. There it is. Now they've become more collaborative. Now we're working on things. First you were rigid, and you know what rigid means, right? Rigid means I don't care what you have to say to me. What stays on the outside stays on the outside, and what I say go is on the inside is what happens, right? But now you're becoming more collaborative, where you probably want to hear or listen to other people's perspectives, right? A couple who used to blame each other begins to see their conflict as co-created and changes how they relate. There it is. Co-created. Now we've been able to recognize this is what our conflict was doing. We recognize it. Now we are working on changes as to how we relate to one another. Fundamental shifts. A family that avoided talking about grief starts to openly express emotion and connecting through loss. When we were avoiding talking about the grief, we have the grief. We recognize that we have the grief, but we're avoiding talking about it all in all, and it's doing what? It's still increasing somewhat. Some anxiety, it's increasing the grief that you're having, it's increasing the depression. But when you become to openly talk about it and express your emotions, you make those connections through the loss. So it's going to do what? Decrease what? Decrease the anxiety, decrease the impression that you have from the grief. Makes sense? Second order change, co-created, fundamental shifts, restructuring the entire family system. These are the models that promote second order change, and you can be able to look at it. Structured family therapy, they restructure family hierarchies and boundaries. That's definitely second order change. Volini therapies promotes differentiation and multi-generational change. When you go back home, when he sends you back home, aren't you like working on changing those emotional reactions that you're going to be having with that family? That's not going to be temporary. It's going to be long lasting. Narrative therapy, you're re-authoring, co-creating, getting to your preferred narrative. Now you've changed from one narrative all the way to the other, so that whole system that you once had about your narrative has changed entirely, right? Contextual therapies, patterns of fairness, what you once had and how you were viewing that family against fairness and being unjust and everything has been changed. The roles are going to be changing within the entire family system. Let's do a recap. Okay, here we are. First order change, the nature of the change is just behavioral, modifying, altering behaviorals, right? The depth of it, it's superficial, but the rules of the system, the roles stays the same. The goal is going to be what? Symptom relief. That's why strategic therapy is good for first order change. Example, a child stopped acting out. Even though the child may have stopped acting out, what were the parents doing? Did the child stop acting out only in certain environments? Were they still acting out in certain areas? Are the parents still seeing him acting out in certain other ways, and now the parent is still trying to do what? Have control over the behavior, right? Second order change, structural changes. It changes the entire system of itself. It's fundamental, meaning the entire system. The rules of the system are what? Redefined. The goal is system reorganization, or the paradigm shift changes everything. Example, the family redefines roles, less pressure on the child. The child now has autonomy, because you know why? The child is probably listening, which means that the parents change from that controlling parent to one that is collaborating with that child. Make sense? Alrighty, so let's do a few questions. As always, feel free to pause this video, but I do think some of these questions that I have in here, I am going to do a video on showing you how to find the breadcrumbs to these correct answers so that you can see what it looks like when it's highlighted and what you need to pay attention to. So this one says, during family therapy with two parents, their preteen son, the therapist observes, initially remind the son to complete basic tasks, brushing his teeth, going to school. Then he starts initiating these tasks independently. The parents, rather than stepping in unnecessarily or feeling nostalgic, they engage in conversations with their son about this growing independence and redefine their roles as supporters, coaches, rather than task enforcers, okay? They openly express their feelings about this transition and collaboratively set new expectations that respects the son's autonomy. Which of the following best conceptualizes the shift in his family functioning? Feel free to pause this video and look over the vignette again and look over the answer responses to see which one you feel is the best answer. So we've got a lot of good stuff that's going on in here, even though, he started out, the parents were controlling, task enforcers, they were like helicopters, but then it kind of shifted from them being those controlling parents to being more collaborative and allowing their son to have more autonomy when it came to him completing his own basic task at home, right? So A says a first order change reflecting improved compliance and household rules. We may say that is yes, that has happened, but there was so much more that happened within the family system, right? B says a regression in the family system. There's nothing that regressed in this family system. If anything, everything sounds so beautifully written with this family and how the son is now doing his task all on his own. C says a second order change involving a systemic transformation in family roles and expectations. That's what we've just been talking about, right? How the whole system transforms versus it just being some improvement, because now the son has autonomy. The parents moved from that controlling parents to being more collaborative with the son and giving him more freedom to make the decisions when it comes to him completing his basic task, right? And we don't even need to look at D, right? A natural development transition, what? That doesn't even make sense. So we're doing away with D, right? So yes, this exactly is a question for a second order change. And if you take a look at the wording and everything that's written there, everything that we just talked about in this video led us to this best answer, because we're seeing terms like what? Autonomy is going on, transition, and working more collaboratively with one another, which leads us to finding the best answer to be second order change. Alrighty, let's do this question. Pause the video, take a look at this question, and see if you can find this answer all on your own, okay? Couples therapy, a husband, wife frequently arguing about household chores. Several sessions, they stop yelling, they speak more politely during disagreements. However, they continue to blame each other when they do speak. Which of the following best describe the change in a relationship? So let's go back. If we were actually taking this on the exam, how would we find out if this is a first order or a second order change question? Go back to the vignette. They frequently argue. This is why they came to therapy. They are frequently arguing about the household chores. Several sessions into the session, they stop yelling at each other and they're speaking politely to one another. But sometimes they're still blaming each other. When they do speak to each other, they're still, engaging in some of those past behaviors that they were doing that had them come to therapy in the first place, right? A says a first order change involving surface level behavior modification without changing core relationship patterns, right? Let's take a look at B, a second order change involving a fundamental shift in how the couple manages conflict. Now, C says a resolution of conflict through improved empathy and understanding. I don't know where the empathy and understanding is, because they're still blaming one another, but okay, why are we even looking at that? D says a breakdown in communication leading to emotional withdrawal. Well, maybe there is some behavior and there is some breakdown in the communication, because that wasn't even addressed. That's why this answer is first order change. If it was second order change, we will be looking at that breakdown in that communication that leads to that emotional withdrawal. But since we didn't, this leads us back to A, first order change involving surface level behavior modification. The only thing that was modified was what? The stopping of the yelling. But they're still blaming one another. They're still probably talking shit to one another while they're doing it too. So that's why it's just surface level change, not a fundamental change in the entire system, leading us to know that this best answer is a first order change. Again, okay, this is a pretty long one, so feel free, pause this video and see if you can find the best answer for it. Couples therapy, arguing about household chores. Over time, they begin not to only speak more calmly, but they actively explore the underlying reasons behind their conflict, such as differing expectations, values about the responsibilities, and they work together to define how chores are divided, right? As a result, their relationship shifts from repeated conflict to collaborative problem solving. So the first question that we did for this was first order change. Does this look like second order change to you? Right? So A says first order change involving superficial behavior adjustments. No, we're just not seeing superficial behavior adjustments in there, because what's happening? They're working together. They've redefined how the chores are divided. They've changed their system, because before they would argue about the chores, but now they've redefined how they are going to be dividing the chores based on each other's preferences, right? So now they're collaborating with one another. When we see the terms collaborate, redefine, structural, adjustment, changes in the relationship, changes in the roles, we know that is second order change. B says second order change involving a fundamental transformation in the communication and the relational roles. The roles of how they're even doing their chores have changed. Fundamental shift in the family system, right? C says temporary improvement due to avoidance. Well, they're not avoiding each other anymore, right? They're not engaging in any of the conflict, right? It's not superficial. D says a natural development progression that resolves conflict automatically. No, that's not supposed to happen in here. I don't even know why that's an answer response, but this correct answer is B. This is a second order change. If you paid attention and go back to the first order change that we did for this same scenario, you will see the huge difference in how these vignettes change from first order change into second order change. I hope this video makes sense to everyone. I hope each and every one of you were able to learn to tell the difference between first order and second order change. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave me a comment. Send me a message on Facebook. I certainly do not mind. I am here to offer all the support that I can. Again, I hope everyone have a safe and great happy 4th of July, and I will talk to you all soon.